That's great, man. All right, here we are back for part 2 of our Teach Your Children Well. As we continue our look at Proverbs, welcome back to No Regrets Marriage Podcast. I'm Johnny Morton, your host. My wife Carla still here with me.
We're waiting with bated breath for the next time.
What the heck is bated breath?
I don't know. It's
It doesn't sound good. It sounds like bated breath. Like you're trying to trap somebody when you bait a trap.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. All right. We are going through the book of Proverbs looking for 10 things that you want to teach your children. Going back real quick, 1 through 5, we talked about how to fear God, to revere the Bible. You want to teach them to honor God. You want to teach them to understand and appreciate discipline, maybe the most challenging thing on this.
Yes.
You want to teach them to pursue godly friendships. All right, let's jump on into number 6. And again, this is another thing that's going to be really challenging, and that's to teach your children self-control.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And those are, to be honest, that's something you can start really, really early.
Yes.
I mean, you think about like training your baby to go back to sleep on their own, things like that. So, why is self-control so important?
Well, because if even from childhood on, if we don't learn the principle that there are boundaries and there are things that are okay to do and there are things that are not okay to do, ultimately, we may get away with it as a 3-year-old in our home if our parents let us. But we're going to go to school somewhere someday and deciding to throw a fit or hit someone or do whatever that's not okay is not going to be tolerated. And if you never learn to control the urge, the impulse, whatever you're thinking or feeling, that you think you have to act on it, ultimately that will bring devastation and destruction. And so really, when we don't teach our children that, we're really setting them up for failure. Because if we don't teach them that, somebody somewhere will.
Yeah, and in reality, you go back to the very beginning and being created in the image of God, and that means we are different from the animals that God created. Animals act off of instinct, primarily. That's not what God created us to do. God gave us a brain, and God expects us to think before we act. Oftentimes, when we act without thinking is when we get into trouble. And this starts, like you said, really early, whether it's teaching your children the idea of self-comforting, to making sure that, you can have one cookie, and that doesn't mean 2 or 3 or 4. But allowing them, and it's how you're going to find when you're trying to teach them self-control, they're going to push boundaries.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's okay. That's to be expected. But what you want them to learn is, no, I need to learn not to do this because if I do, there's consequences.
I tell parents all the time, you decide where the lines are. You as the parent draw the boundaries, but you need to be clear about the boundaries, but also don't have boundaries that are not really going to have consequences, because they're running right up to the boundary and stepping over it. And guess what? If there's no consequence, you just really told me that's really no boundary. So guess what? If screaming in the Walmart gets me another candy or another toy, guess what I'm doing again next time? I'm screaming even louder in the Walmart.
Yeah, they learn to manipulate.
And so it really behooves a parent to decide where they are, where the lines are, make certain of that, and then there's got to be consequences when they decide they're going to test it.
But I was, as I'm saying that, I think I'm thinking of this. Again, this is something we've got to model as parents, but then to realize that that's part of the problem of sin.
Oh, yeah.
That sin causes us not to have self-control.
Yeah.
And when you go into talking about once we become a believer and choose to follow Christ, part of that new person, and that's part of that is the Holy Spirit giving us that ability of self-control.
Yeah. And so honestly, for children that, are not Christians yet, what you're really teaching them, if you would, is some behavioral
It's
control.
behavioral control. And what are the boundaries?
What are the boundaries? Because within that, there's safety, there's protection, there's good. If they don't ever learn that, like I said, there'll be consequences. Ultimately, we want, as we grow up and your children get bigger and they can cognitively process and think and make decisions, yeah, we want that driven based on, what is the Holy Spirit helping us do or not do in the form of self-control.
Yeah, and part of that is learning to, to think before you speak, not just to say what comes to mind. And again, you've got to model that as a parent. I think back and I'm sure there's so many times that I said something, whether it be driving and said something about another driver. Not that I would ever do that.
No.
Or, and that's on me not to do those things.
Yeah.
And so, Carla, don't look so smug over there. But it's going to be a challenge. It is, because that idea of self-will and self-control is such a part of sin nature. And so you understand, hey, what are the boundaries? And that can be everything from rules and regulations in the house to social boundaries, to boundaries about space, to boundaries about the things we say and we don't say. Please, thank you, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Just those sort of things are things that we want to teach our children. But then ultimately realizing that idea of really it's only a God thing, that when we come to Christ, that he gives that power, he empowers us really to practice that kind of self-control that we need.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, what you're sort of doing with our children is initially we are teaching them that there are consequences when we don't exhibit and have self-control and we just do whatever, because we want to protect them and keep them from those bad things that can happen. Like you said, ultimately, it is a way and a form of modifying people's behavior, but it doesn't change somebody's heart. And that's the thing that
only God can do that.
does. But again, we really do want to modify a lot of times their behaviors, because some of it we need to help them with.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's number 6. Number 7, we want to teach our children to speak truth. And that includes just all the basics, that if you ask them something, you want them to tell you the truth. But it also includes, telling things factually and not embellishing or not leaving things out. And, how many times do we do that ourselves?
We do it a lot.
Or how many times do you think, I think all the time that somebody asks us, hey, can you go do something? And I was just listening today to listen to a podcast, and it was talking about sort of a different subject, but it hit something to hear. That idea of let our yes be yes and our no be no. But instead, how many times do we try to come up with an excuse because it sounds better? Because it feels uncomfortable if someone says, hey, can you go out to dinner Friday night? And for whatever reason, you just don't want to. You've had a hard week. You want to just stay at home. You don't want to have to get dressed. But we come up with, man, I'd love to, but I'm doing such and such, which may or may not be true. Mm. And so it's going to be a constant struggle, I think, for all of us. And as my son called it, speaking radical truth. But it's so important that you teach your children to do that.
Well, and that they understand that there's always consequences to lying. And also just the concept too that really our lies will find us out. The truth ultimately comes to light. And we really do want our kids to learn that early on. Am I making you
No, you're not. That's lack of oxygen to my brain,
to your
causing
brain.
Yeah.
So I think they need to know, if I used to have told ours through the years, if you have done so and so, there are consequences, and we'll talk about
You
that.
told me that through the years.
Yes, I've told you that too. But if you lie to me about what happened, and when I find out,
or
it's
you
going to be
don't,
worse.
or if you don't tell the complete truth.
Yes.
We sort of do partial truth.
Yeah. So, and if I, and you know, we've talked about this principle in a lot in marriage. So the idea again that if in having intimacy, having this spouse be the closest person.
Yeah,
to
we're all
you,
going to do wrong. And so when
right.
you're confessing that you've screwed up, tell it all.
Yeah, tell it all. Because the problem is if you leave out a piece and then that comes to light later, which it almost always does, then there is a sense of trust now is gone. And so really the principle early on in our lives is just the idea that we absolutely want to speak truth. We really do. And we want to help our kids understand there really are consequences when you don't.
Yeah, and whether right or wrong, I know there are some who would say that, let's say your child has done something wrong, they made some poor choices, and when you ask them about it, if they come clean, their consequences or the discipline typically, when I did it, was going to be less than if they didn't tell the truth about it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I would say
because I want them, I want them to know that there are benefits. Even when we do wrong, there's benefits to telling the truth.
Just telling, confessing what you did.
But I think even going back to that other one, I think the bigger thing is that, man, not embellishing, not doing, quote, the little white lies as we talk about them.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. And again, and I don't know how many times I keep coming back to this, but it seems to make sure you're doing that. Because your children will very often model what they see you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that if they see you making untrue excuses to get out of something, don't be surprised when they do the same thing.
They do that too, yeah.
So, and I really wasn't expecting this when I was thinking about this, that constantly coming back to myself and thinking about what I did. But, I realized how important that is that, we do. We do it, but we shouldn't be asking our children to do something that we're not following it.
And when we
when we mess up, we need to let them know that.
Say I didn't tell that quite right. I made that sound a little bigger, a little worse, a little
because I wanted to make me sound better.
Yeah, or I wanted to paint a picture that looked a little different.
Yeah, and that's hard to do, but that'll be huge impression on your children if you do that.
Oh yes.
So, all right, tell them to speak the truth. Teach them the value of hard work.
Oh.
We get that story. Remember the story in Proverbs about the ant?
Oh, love the ant.
Love the ant. Yeah, you are the ant.
I love an ant in all ways. All right, look, there are worker little ants. They're little teeny, I was going to say people. They're not people.
No, they're not. They're
little
ants.
Teeny things, insects. And they just work themselves.
They work and they do right and they store up and they don't look like they ever rest because they're always moving.
They're always
unless
moving.
They're dead. But that's the example that it talks about in Scripture is, hey, look at the ant. Look how they toil. That there is value in work. Again, we go all the way back to the beginning. We were created to work. Now we know that part of the fall, the curse was that work was going to be hard and drudgery and frustrating and everything else. But work is good. Work is honorable. And, we want to teach our children the value of work and effort.
And not always trying to get out of work. And that is hard to do. You will have, some of you are listening and you're like, I have 3 worker bees and worker ants. We'll call them worker ants, worker bees. And I am super proud of that. That is awesome. I do think there's sometimes people, probably like myself, little ant.
Temperament.
Personality. And they just will not they'll need some nudging, but they will go with it. And there's others that you're like, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
I would always delay till the last minute.
Oh,
My mom would ask me, "Hey, can you clean the gutters?" And there are often times is when I see her pulling out the ladder,
and
and
your
she's
little
gonna, yeah,
mama.
my mom's gonna go do it, and I felt so guilty and
You
bad.
should have.
But
That is shame.
yeah, I know.
Shame.
Um,
Pitiful.
so and there is a certain thing that your children are gonna have. Their temperament's gonna have different
Yeah, and some are going to
levels
be
of
more
work
like,
ethic.
yeah.
Yeah,
But again, the concept that work is, like you said, it's a good thing. It's an honorable thing. It's a worthwhile thing.
it is. And one of the things, and one of the best ways is, yes, there's times when you're going to tell your children, hey, make your bed, clean your room, do these things just because they need to learn that discipline. But also understand and teach them that there is rewards that come with work.
Yeah.
And so that could be a valuable thing that, yes, there are times to do that. But, if you're going to tell them, okay, go pick up every stick in the woods, you might want to reward them for that, not just say go do it because it'll be good for you in the future or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
true.
that. All right. So teaching the value of work. Hey, number 9, learn to be generous and to give to those who have less than you do. Um, this is one of those huge things that they're going to model what they see. If you're a giver, and if you give at church, and if you give to other ministries, and you're cleaning out your closet and taking it to the local Goodwill or Salvation Army or somewhere else like that, they're going to notice that.
I think also if again, obviously all of the things we've said on the last podcast and this one is age related. Obviously you're going to do different things at different times and talk about it. But as your kids can understand that maybe you as a family are making a donation or you're going to do X thing to a given ministry or a given whatever, and maybe they understand that and they even are part of it, like they work and earn some extra money to participate in buying this X thing at Christmas for this family or helping. Or maybe they understand that you're not going to do something that's the higher ticket thing because you're going to also do this other thing that's going to help somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to get to do these things, but we're going to think about somebody else also. And I think back about my parents, how many times we didn't just like go, I want to say hang a thing on the, I'm thinking of the angel
The
tree
angel
or
tree
something
or
like
something.
that.
Yeah, the Christmas
When
thing they
we
do.
did things, we gathered the gifts, we went, we shopped, whatever. We went to wherever you took them, either to people's homes or to them, or in some way there was a connection. So we stepped in sometime to places that were outside of where
Your
our
comfort
world was
zones.
and our comfort to see other things. And I think even as children, you can help expand their world a little bit.
Yeah, I think of that. We did a lot of those things. I remember picking up angels, and we took kids with us, and we're buying for a boy, we're buying for a little girl, and doing these
And
things.
having them be involved.
Yeah. Um, other things I've seen people that they go and every Christmas as a family, and they go ring bells for
Ring
the
bells.
Salvation Army. They go on Thanksgiving and down at the homeless shelter, whoever's doing turkey dinner for the poor, and they participate in doing that and serving. There's a lot of different ways. Giving is not just money, but also giving of their time. Also, whatever talents we've had. Man, I think back, there were students who, set up everything from cheerleader camps to football camps and baseball camps for kids who didn't have a chance to go to that.
Oh.
That did drives for, you know, um, for coats and clothes and all those sorts of things. Man, those are awesome things that you want to teach your children. I mean, you think about it, Jesus talked about that one of our big judgments is going to be, what do we do for the least of these? James says, hey, true religion is taking care of widows and orphans, of taking care of the poor. The poor are very close to the heart of God. And we want to make sure that we're involved in ministering to them, and whether that be giving money, time, goods, whatever it is. Another sort of thing I'd encourage you to do is don't always give out of your extra, but let your kids see to give that may be a sacrifice. You think about what we give away to Goodwill, we always give the things we don't want anymore.
Right, that's what I was
Things that are
thinking when you
worn
were
out.
saying that obviously that's a great thing to clean out your closet and do
It
that.
is.
But again, like you said, that's kind of giving out of your excess.
Yes. And I think tail on this, and you can't get away, is giving back to God. Teaching your children really young that principle of stewardship, that everything we have belongs to God. We belong to God, and everything we have is a gift from Him, and we want to give back. We want to give to the church. We want to give to those that are poor and needy, supporting missionaries, just so many ways that we can give back. And again, that's something that's real. I don't think it's that hard to set that pattern early for your children to see and to practice.
Yeah.
And man, you find me somebody who learns to give when they're a child, that's something that's going to be a lifelong thing oftentimes. All right, final one is teach them to find a godly spouse.
Oh.
You
probably don't have to do that right at 2, 3, 4, but
no, but what I would be doing is I would be, from the time they're born, you ought to be praying for them and their future spouse. And as they grow up, you want to teach them, what do they want to look for?
Yeah.
What are the characteristics of a godly man? What are the characteristics of a godly woman?
Because one of the things you want to help them understand early on, I think, or, at the age that it's appropriate, a lot of times people don't know when they're going to, quote, fall for the person they end up marrying. I mean, we all probably know people who met in middle school and started dating and end up together. That's statistically a little on the narrow end, but we know a handful of people.
Yeah, we do.
And
Family members.
Yeah, and so it's like, okay, so you can't just think, I'll date anybody I want to from 13, 14, 15 to 20, 21.
Then
I'll
I'll
get
start
serious
going
about
with the right
what I'm
people.
really looking for.
Well, this goes back
Don't
even when we
waste it.
talked about, hey, choosing your friends
Right,
wisely.
Right. And so that would be the same way with dating things. And so you want to help them understand, you don't want to be dating somebody at 15 that's not the kind of person you want to be around, need to be around.
Yeah.
So you want them to understand that principle early on, because you don't know when they will end up meeting somebody that they end up deciding they're going to be with.
Yeah, and again, I would say that, man, these are there's some choices that we want to make sure we are equipping our children to make those choices wise. And when it comes to things like who you date, the choices you make about sex, choices you make when it comes to alcohol, the choice you make about who you're going to marry, you don't want to leave that to someone else to teach your children that. You don't want to leave that up to the culture to tell your child what to do. You want to teach them those principles and keep teaching them, obviously level specific, age specific. But you want to do that. That's part of our responsibility as parents, to do that.
Yep.
So there you go. There's our
Your top 10. Well, they're really Johnny's top 10.
They're my top 10 because I didn't even ask Carla.
But I agreed with them and I went with them, even though I was off on a few of them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you going.
You got a good top 10 list.
Yeah, I think that's a very well-rounded list, if I must say so myself.
You don't say so yourself.
All right, next time on No Regrets Marriage Podcast, we are going to be really just looking at what are some principles from Proverbs about marriage, and it'll probably end up being 2, but if it's only 1, we want to look at that. But then we want to look at that Proverbs 31 woman.
Oh.
What is that godly woman like? And I think it's interesting. Before I thought, well, shouldn't we have one on what a godly man is? And yet, Scripture sort of says, hey, especially husbands in that, husbands, you're supposed to love like Jesus did. And I would pursue and I would encourage you guys, look at Jesus, look at his character, look at how he treated people, and that's your model. But then God's given this incredible model of the Proverbs 31 woman that hopefully we'll be looking at next time or the next time. And so until then, and as you start working around and teaching your children, we encourage you to teach them well. But also we want to encourage you to keep on forging.